Good afternoon. So I wanted to share some good news that I think is good for the Family History Project, and why I think it's good, right? So while I'm giving this little video, I'll also be sharing some pictures and stuff just to kind of go along with it. So I'll kind of start with this. All right. So this is my great great grandfather. His name is Jasper Yancey Williams. And the good news I have to share today evolves around him. So he came from a mixed family. Uh, his father's name was William Jasper Sullivan. He owned what was known as the Sullivan Plantation and a lot of land. Of course, he owned a lot of slaves, including his own son, my great great grandfather, as well as my great 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 grandmother and a lot of the family. So after the Civil War and all the slaves were emancipated, the Williams family continued to live near the Sullivan family. William Jasper Sullivan, from what I've been able to find with all the documents, never married. He lived usually within 1 to 2 houses away from the Williams family, and he always lived with his sisters up until old age. So I'm not sure if he actually ever had a family other than the Williams family, but he definitely lived near them and is documented on several census around that time. And they always lived on the same street within a couple of houses of each other. So Sullivan was a Freemason. We found that in some research in his official biography. He was a land owner, of course, and he did a lot of things as far as working for the parish. He also was a Confederate soldier and was entitled to the pension that was associated with that, and we were able to find documents on that. So a very interesting story. So as I continue to research, uh, I'll share this. Around 2005, there was a man. His name was John Head, and older gentleman, retired. And he stumbled across where they were buried, a place I had been looking for several years, which literally is only about 15 minutes away from where I was raised. But he stumbled across where they were buried in 2005, and he took these photos. And he went back around 2018, and he registered all of the graves with Find a Grave, and that's how I was able to find it. So we made contact. He gave me the grids, and I was able to go there. So for the first time, I was able to actually visit this place this year in February during my time in Shreveport. So I really wanted to thank him in person, but he literally passed away in January, and I showed up in Caddo Parish in February. So I never had a chance to actually meet him in person, but a great deed done by him. So once I found this property, I wanted to, see it improved upon, right? Once I found where the graves were and I saw the conditions of some. So I reached out to one of my political mentors, Commissioner Epperson, and he said, why don't you um, write an article about it, try to generate some support, and let's figure out the status of the land. Maybe we can get the parish to go ahead and take a proactive role in preserving this cemetery. So what eventually ended up happening is after speaking with Commissioner Epperson and then writing the article, I went ahead and reached out to my own commissioner, Commissioner Lazarus, who is actually pictured here on the side under Commissioner Epperson. And he was able to give me a lot of details on the land. So we found out that it'd be a little harder than we thought for the government to step in because it was private property. It was owned by someone. So he put me in touch with the man below him, Mr. Whitman, and he works for the parish, more of like a land assessor and adjudicator. So he was able to find out who actually owned the land. So I began reaching out to the landowner about a month ago, and we went back and forth with a lot of emails discussing who was buried on the property, how long they were buried there, and how this piece of land really dates back to the uh, you know late 1800s, to have people buried in it born as far back as the early 1800s. So the long story short, is after a lot of talking and negotiating, he decided today that he would sell me the land. And he was very generous in this fact that he is allowing me to buy it for, under what it's worth. And this is a pretty nice thing because I really have plans I'd like to see happen with this land. I'd like to see it cleared off. I'd like to see it gated. I would like to see some of the tombstones that are falling apart or broken replaced, some flowers planted near the graves, and a lot of things that more than likely I could do once I retire, and probably solicit help to do. So this document here kind of shows back in the 1880s when my great-great-grandfather here actually married his wife and started a family on this land. And then this article from the 1900 actually shows here where the land was acquired from William Jasper Sullivan by Jasper Yancey Williams, and basically February 13, 1900. So it's kind of neat to have the land basically soon to be back in the ownership of a Williams after so many years. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I was very humbled by it and surprised that he would be as generous as he was with regards to making me the deal. So of course, why is this important, right? Why is it so important that I get land and try to maintain it and improve upon those graves, right? It's the legacy. And it's a great legacy. So I won't go into much of it, but there are some things I definitely think are worth sharing because it really, kind of points to what this family was able to accomplish in such a short period of time, keeping in mind that they were, in fact, slaves. So to be able to accomplish what they did in the time that they did is just remarkable. I mean, on the 70 census, they were all listed as free, and they couldn't read or write. By the 1880s, they were listed as free and they could write. And by the 1890s, two of them had already graduated college. So it's definitely a beautiful legacy to keep and to preserve. So this is actually a image. At the top right, you'll see is my great-great-uncle, Robert S. Williams. And at the bottom, his brother, Charles H. Williams, who was a senior elder within the CME Church. And they were, of course, two older brothers of my great-great-grandfather, Jasper. And this is the CME Temple in Shreveport, known as the Williams Cme Church, when it was first erected. And that's a legacy. There's many churches around the country that are named in honor of my great-great-uncle. And this one is the one that's in Shreveport, Louisiana. This is a picture of Charles H. Williams. And again, he was one of the oldest brothers in that generation. And of course, this is approximately from 1909, 1910 of the Williams Institute CME Temple in New York. So when you look at Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, just all around, there's many Williams CME churches. And again, a lot of them, they are, in fact, dedicated to or named for Robert S. Williams, the other brother that we discussed. Now, Robert did become somewhat of a leader within the church and, of course, within the race, right? And we'll go over some of that to kind of add to that legacy. So there's these World Methodist conferences that occur, and they call them like Symmetrical conferences. And my Uncle Robert was able to attend 3 throughout his life, but one in particular stands out to me, which was the 1909 conference, which was held in London, England. So this is part of his passport showing that he actually filed to go in August of 1901, and the event actually occurred in September of 1901. So this is a picture it has two articles here that I came across, one from 1899, one in 1901, all talking about the fact that these, African American uh, priests and bishops will be traveling to London to, represent the race and really the religion. So this is a picture of him from that era, a picture of him here centered with other CME bishops, and of course a picture here which has him at the front, and it has the CME, AME, and AMEZ bishops all together in London, England. So pretty cool. Another picture of him that's used on in different books and settings from the era, and of course, this was part of the proceedings of that meeting, which I have a 1901 first edition copy of the book with his speech in it. And this was a joint picture, which includes all of the priests. And again, he's right here at the front, and it includes the African American priests, the priests from Africa, as well as all of the European priests, American priests, and all the top Methodist leaders from around the world. So it's pretty remarkable to see at a time when America was going through so much that things like this were happening. A lot of people forget about Reconstruction, but it was truly a remarkable time, and a lot was going on for the better. Education, of course, was very important to my Uncle Robert, as it should be when you're looking at the fact that you were not able to learn and now you can. Obviously, you should take advantage of it. So, besides earning his own doctorate degree, he played a very active role in educating others. And this is a poster from Miles College, which is a college that he sat as president of at the same time as the prelate of the Third Methodist Episcopal District. And this, of course, has him in the center, all his staff, as well as the college. And pretty cool legacy. And of course, they have what's called Williams Hall, which still is at Miles College today. It was erected in 1907 and is one of the oldest standing buildings still there. The college actually, within the last 5 years, was started a project to refurbish it and to actually restore it, to either put it back in use or to make it a museum. So I think looking ahead, it'd be interesting to see where the college go with that. And of course, this is from the era when he served as president. This was a girls group that was there for the boarding department, which actually held classes and met in that building. So this is actually on the steps of Williams Hall around the year 1907 or '09. So again, a really cool legacy of of education and trying to help the next generation. That was the big thing is he was trying to help the next generation so that with each generation, the hope is that things would get better, right? So then we go to another passion of his, which is another university as well, and that would be Payne College, which of course still stands today, still runs today, and they in fact give two scholarships or awards in his honor. One called the Bishop Robert S. Williams Award in Philosophy, the other the Bishop Robert S. Williams Award in Religion. So that's a pretty cool legacy to have there. And of course, this is from 1908. So at this time, this was a meeting of the board of directors of Payne College, which Dr. George Walker sat on, Dr. Haygood, as well as Bishop Williams and many others. And it tells the story of how Dr. Hammond was actually nominated and elected to be president of the college during this particular meeting. So it's pretty cool to see him sitting as a bishop within the church, an activist within the community, but also playing such a remarkable role in education. And of course, he served as vice president of Payne College, and this is a photo presumably took around the time he was a leader within that college of students and a teacher. So again, it's kind of cool to see these historically Black colleges still around with relatives having played such an important role within them. Now, the last piece of the legacy that I'm very proud of and that I would share would be his activism. He was very active in the in the country when it comes to freedom and equality. Very, very active. So this is a picture from what was known as the Negro Young People's Christian Education Congress, which he served as vice president of in 1902 as well as the 1906 Congress. He served as vice president of both. He also sat on several committees within the organization, including very notable people who took part in it, like Booker T. Washington, a good friend of his, and many other leaders at that time. And this was from a conference that he actually attended. It was sponsored by the Mosaic Templars, which Uncle Robert actually served as the grand chaplain of. And you will notice that the keynote speaker with him was, actually for the event, was R.C. Simmons, who was actually the nephew of Booker T. Washington. So another really, high-level event that he was able to be part of. Then, of course, in 1907, there was an event called the Negro Race Conference, where you had two former governors of South Carolina speaking on behalf of the nation at large, and they selected Booker T. Washington and, of course, Uncle Robert to speak on behalf of the Negro race. And this was supposed to be, of course, a big unity event where they were pushing for peace, equality, and again, just trying to fight a lot of what people saw in the Jim Crow era. And of course, this is a flyer from the 1906 Christian and Education Congress, where again, Booker T. Washington was a keynote speaker as well as on the executive committee. And the records also show that, of course, Bishop Williams was the vice president of the event as well as on the executive committee as well. So really cool to see them working together over such a long period of time. And of course, he was active at home, which he called Georgia his home. So when it came time for the equal rights and all of the movements that people associate with the 60s that really began in the early 1900s, you see people like A.D. Williams, the grandfather of Martin Luther King. He was a member of this committee. Our own Uncle Robert, he was a member of the committee. You have he was actually the vice president of this one too. And then of course you have W.B. Du Bois, a well-known civil rights leader and activist who also formed or helped establish the NAACP. They were all friends, they were all working together, and they were all on this committee to execute what became the Georgia Equal Rights Convention 1906, which was, I believe, the first of an ongoing convention that still happens today. And of course, politically, like many of his time, he was a Republican. And this was an article where the state of Georgia actually announced their electorates. They had 3 white electorates and 3 African American electorates. And of course, Bishop Williams was one, casting his vote for Theodore Roosevelt. So he did support Roosevelt during both terms. He also spoke out against Roosevelt when he felt that he wasn't doing enough at a time when Booker T. Washington was actually very friendly with Roosevelt. So that could have threw some tension in the friendship. But ultimately, this was Roosevelt's 3rd run when he was running to upseat Taft. And again, Uncle Robert supported Roosevelt. But ultimately, that split. And then the Democrat, which I believe was Wilson, if I remember correctly, he ultimately won because the Republican ticket was split during that election. And of course, this is just some of the other events he took part in. There was the Negro Youth People Congress, there was the African American Conference, and the first one there, it talks about the Templars and the Mosaic Templars. And a lot of the people he worked with, AME bishops, CME bishops, activists like F.B. Williams, who's not related to us, by the way, but she was very active and found herself at several events that Uncle Robert was at as well. So that's kind of cool. When you look at the circle, they were pretty small because a lot of these people, they show up in numerous articles together, numerous pictures together. And it's just really kind of neat to see how these people are trying to, really bring up a disparaged people. And of course, that was Uncle Robert's daughter. Her name was Ortoria Williams Dry. She ended up marrying a Tuskegee Airman who was later killed at a young age. She lived to be 106, born in 98 and died in like 2000, I believe, 4. So she lived in part of 3 centuries, which is pretty cool. But another thing is that she was a founding member of the Tuskegee chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta. There was, when it first started, there was only about 6 or 7 members. They're all listed there. And one of them, of course, was Booker T. Washington's wife, Margaret Washington. And they also used to hold meetings in Booker T. Washington's house, which is kind of neat. So it just kind of draws another parallel between the Williams and the Washington family at that time. Activism by the men as well as the women, because Margaret Washington was very powerful and respected her own right. And of course, Victoria Williams Dry, she would go on to make headlines when she moved up north, and she faced even more disparities in like the 60s and pre-60s, and made the news when her and her family, stood up for themselves, saying, how can we not be allowed to live in a certain neighborhood when, we're Americans, and, she's standing there as a widow of a World War II veteran. So it's kind of cool to see, even on the women's side, that there were strong leaders, not just men, women as well, that were coming up and standing up for their rights. So that's the legacy that the Williamses leave. They left a legacy of people who were born slaves, who were freed, and within 10 years were able to read, write, and do all these different things that I'm sure they never imagined they could do. And it's truly remarkable. And to be able to find where a lot of these leaders are buried is just a blessing. But to really be able to come back and say, hey, this is my family, I want to preserve their legacy, and be able to own some of that land and their burial sites is just truly a blessing and humbling. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, because I thought it was a really, really neat surprise to have the phone call today. Because actually, as things kind of drug on, I thought there was going to be some, issues where the owner might not want to sell the land, or might not want to do anything with the land, or both, which would be kind of, I think, just a big missed opportunity. So the fact that he called and we talked, and he said, yes, I want to see something done with this land. Yes, I think what you want to do is exactly what should be done. And yes, I'll, sell you this land, below value, because I know what you're going to do with it, and I like what you're going to do with it. So I think, again, a cool piece of the story. I mean, there's 3 generations of Williams is buried there, from Doc Williams Jr. to my great-great-grandfather and his siblings. There's a brother or sister there, then their mother, my third great-grandmother, and there's also other people there. I don't know yet how they connect to the family. And there's also broken stones there that I don't know who they are. So there's still a lot of research and investigating to be done. But I think still a big win just for genealogy and family history. So land that we could connect to our third great-grandfather, William Jasper Sullivan, down to our second great-great-grandfather, Jasper Yancey Williams, from the 1800s to the 1900s, we'll now be able to have another Williams own it. And I think that's just pretty awesome. And I just look forward to the challenge of making it, respectable and something we can continue to go to and reflect on deeds of the past. So anyway, thank you for your time. And I'll be looking for some interesting ways to do it. I know that there are some places out there that do like cemetery restoration grants, things like that. So I'll look into some of that and try to figure out a way to get a decent, amount of money together to do it, so I can, gate it, maybe put a sign up. And like I said, some of the, at least 2 of those tombstones I'd like to replace with new ones, and then maybe look at some of the ones that still stand, just trying to have them touched up a little bit. But I have, good plans, and it'll take time, but I'll be retiring soon. So I think whatever I can get started while I'm in and have people do there, I will. Whatever I can, I'll be able to finish once I retire. But anyway, I just wanted to share the achievements. I felt it was definitely a blessing and something that worked out in a way I didn't think it would. And of course, any ideas that you have, shoot them my way. People who have, done cemetery restorations and things of this nature. I'd totally be open and interested in any ideas to do this in a meaningful and economic way. So have a great day, and keep us in prayer. Thank you.